What's going on, Bucs fans? Back here for another episode of the Pirate Parlay podcast here on the Sick Podcast Network. As always, I'm your host, JC Allen, and we are fresh off 2 days of mandatory minicamp. Some good things happening out in practice, and we're going to get into all of that. I've got a special guest today who's been out there the last 2 days. You guys know him. He's a staple in this Buccaneers coverage down here. We'll get into all that and more right after the break.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to the Sick Podcast. Pirate Parlay.
Battle intercepted, picked off in the end zone. Bucs are going to beat the Chiefs. We're the champions of the world.
The sickest Tampa Bay Buccaneers podcast. It's going to be sick.
Thanks to you guys for joining in on another episode of the Pirate Parlay podcast here on the Sick Podcast Network. We got a special guest. We'll waste no time to get him in. You know him from The Athletic. You know him from the Tampa Bay Times, now current NFL writer for Fox. He is none other than the statistician himself, Greg Auman.
How you doing?
How you doing?
Very good. Good to be on with you guys. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Better to be nice in the cool AC than it was out today. It's been a scorch the last 2 days, Greg. I think it's been hotter this year than it has the last 4 or 5 years.
Feels like it. It's like you get used to in season when it's only a half hour, and no matter how long it is, it's only a half hour, so you can kind of handle anything. Now it's it's probably short compared to training camp, I guess, but it still feels like hot. And then interviews outside in direct sun. That's a treat in and of itself. So
yeah.
But no, happy to be inside, enjoying the air conditioning right now.
Right, it's been brutal. Thankfully, practice is just an hour tomorrow, so we don't have to endure so much. But it was also good to see none of the guys look like they were affected by the heat. We had a couple pukers and a couple guys walking off in rookie minicamp, and looks like all the guys that stuck around have fit in nicely. But what have been your biggest takeaways so far through 2 days, and throw in OTAs as well? What's jumped out at you and maybe surprised you or caught your eye?
Yeah, I mean, nothing huge either way. I mean, this is as Todd says, it's kind of shorts and shirts and just non-contact practices. But I mean, I feel like the offense has looked in terms of the transition to Josh Grizzard has seemed pretty sharp, like in terms of everybody being comfortable where they are. It's probably been more turnovers than I would like to see if you're worried about that. But it's one of those where, Baker likes to push things a little bit in practice. So I really don't think it's anything you'd sweat in terms of, wow, this is going to be a problem, as much as it is, there's definitely on the defensive side a real push to try and get more takeaways and less passes defensed and more interceptions. So that's kind of the positive way to look at things, I guess, would be to say, wow, they're getting their hands. They're actually, reeling some passes in. There's still been some nice drops too. Don't worry about that. But no, I felt like, Jamal Dean had a pick today. McCollum had a pick today. Roman Parodi had a pick today. So no, it seemed like for the most part, it's been, they're going to start by saying injury-free. So that definitely is another thing that's been a good part of things. We've heard about a couple other guys getting injured in camps and stuff. So it probably starts with a healthy week for them.
Roman Parody. Something tells me once fans get in front of him and if he keeps making plays like this, who is the cornerback that ended up signing with the San Francisco? He had a heck of a preseason. It was like Roman Parrish. That's who it was.
Yeah. What was it? No, it was like the Oklahoma guy, right?
I think so. Yeah, it wasn't Parrish.
No, it's different. It ended in EY. Bucs corner Oklahoma, like Parney.
Oh, it's Parney. Yeah, that's what it was. Yeah. So Parrish is the guy on the team.
Yeah, Parrish. I'm blanking on. Yeah, he's one of those that looked great and like picked off Brady like twice,
right,
in that first week, and then really didn't do that much at all.
Right.
Period.
So let's start with the secondary because interceptions Parnell Motley, right? He went to like a good school or something too, right? But like one of these. Let's start with the secondary because like that's what they want, more interceptions. They spent a lot of draft capital, second and third round pick to try to get guys to make more turnovers. They signed some veteran depth, bringing back Bryce Hall, Kendall Door. What's your comfortability level with the depth at cornerback right now, specifically? If we were to start games today.
Much improved. I mean, from a year ago, again, and it would be hard for them to be as injured as they were a year ago. But to take, last year it was kind of like there were three, and then it was a big drop off after three. So now to have, Dean and McCollum as presumed starters. Morrison definitely pushing both of them for playing time and for starting. And then Parrish is an inside-out guy. Bryce Hall, if he's healthy, that's 5 corners. So if they carry more than that, it'll be, that's the cutoff. So now Vildor, who you thought was kind of the Tavier Thomas replacement, is probably on the bubble or would have to show more versatility than he has so far to make the cut right now. Maybe if they carried like 11 DBs, he'd make the cut. But if they only carry 10, I'm not sure he's on there because at safety, you probably have to count it right now as Winfield and Heike Smith, and probably Izian would be your third. So that's 8. Then you add in Parrish as 9, and then 10th would be, somebody with his Merriweather or Vildor or one of these other undrafted types.
Safety type guys that come up.
Yeah, it's tough. Like I said, I think they went out of their way to overcompensate and get more depth and competition than they've had. It reminds me a little bit of what the Eagles did in terms of drafting 2 rookies high. Maybe you don't need both to jump in right away, but that you have 2 guys you can really build around. And, we really haven't seen the Bucs do that much rotation at corner. Usually it's like Bowles has his guys and they're out there the whole game. But I think this is definitely a scenario where if you're up 14, could rotate a guy in for a series, could rotate if they stick with the vets and it's Dean and it's McCollum, you could see Morrison get to spell them, and it's every 4th series or some kind of rotation like that just to get his feet wet,
right,
and move him along. Only when the game kind of allows for it. I don't know if they throw him out there in high pressure situation if he's not the starter.
Right, and Morrison didn't practice today, which was interesting. Obviously, Tristan Wirf's not practicing still. Levante David wasn't practicing either. Chris Godwin wasn't practicing, and other than that, Izian did teams and individuals, but didn't do team drills. Pretty much, really the only thing. Michael Pratt's still not practicing.
Trey Palmer. Things. I don't think there's anything that's like a huge concern that would extend to camp or anything like that.
Right. I think everyone will be good by the time they get to camp. What are your early impressions from Benjamin Morrison? I know he didn't practice today, but he made a play last week in OTAs. He's really sticky coverage yesterday, I thought. Really gave McMillan a tough day yesterday, and McMillan bounced back today. But what do you think of Benjamin Morrison so far? And Jacob Parrish, too. He had one, he's biting himself. He got hit right in the belly with a Baker pass and just dropped it. Should have been an interception easily, but he's been making plays all camp. What are your early impressions from those guys? And is this another case where the Bucs hit the nail on the head?
Yeah, 2 guys that are really well liked nationally. I think a lot of people pointed to Morrison's a guy that could have snuck into the end of the first round. Good size. They took an injury risk there, and that he's coming off hip surgery and bilateral hip surgery. But I think he's shown already feels pretty confident coming back. I thought resting him today might even be a smart thing in that, you don't really need to work him all 3 days in June. I think the main thing is to give him a taste, let him see what he can do. Morrison, it'll be interesting to see how quickly he can gain their confidence, because I think Dean and McCollum have that, and have had that 3 years for everybody, for both of them with all the coaches involved. So that takes a lot to overcome if you're a new guy. But I do think they like both. Parrish, we saw Parrish kind of double repping today as the first team nickel, as an outside guy in some goal line work. And I think Parrish you probably hear even more about from teammates from, I think if he's the nickel, and right now it looks like he's the nickel, he probably has the clear path to getting on the field in a meaningful role. And nickel has kind of been an entry point the last couple of years where Izian was a rookie and played there, and Tyke was a rookie and played there. So they've done it before.
Right.
And that's a position that, again, has a lot of versatility to it. So, it has to be somebody that the coaches like, the coaches trust, the coaches want to be able to do a lot of different things with.
Exactly.
And you have, if you think about the 2 safeties and the nickel is just a triangle of versatility, it's not like one of them has to be the deep safety. One of them has to be the box safety.
Right.
All 3 of those can kind of switch around, even within the same personnel groupings. And I think they like that.
Right.
I think those, we can think of, even if we talk about 10 DBs on the roster, there's probably about 6 that you can frame together in terms of the 2 rookies, McCollum, Dean, Winfield, and Tyke. And anything outside that 6 might not get on the field that much. But I think you do have some opportunities for dime and different looks within that, where you'd bring another safety on the field and feel good about, the run stopping aspect, even though you're in a dime.
Right. Yeah. And I think that's what they wanted to do, was set themselves up with that versatility going in this season, knowing that, hey, we got to get better. And the Bucs have made the secondary players have made it a point to start meeting together. Cause I know I talked to some of the guys, and having a different voice next to you in your head and not knowing whether you can trust that guy it really made them play much more like tighter and restricted. They didn't play as free as they wanted to, a lot of those guys, because they were dealing with so many new guys coming in and trying to get everybody on the same page. So having them meet together, having this grouping where they've got the interchangeability, is just going to benefit the Bucs. What do you make of this defensive front? We've seen them here the last couple days, just 2 days, but they've been able to put some pressure on. And I know shorts and shirts are not in pads. Luke talked to us today. He's like, we can't really grab them. They're just push pulling the hell out of us. But it's still been encouraging to see the guys get pressure, and in some of the ways they've gotten pressure too. Like if some of the ways that they've gotten pressure, you see like, okay, if they're in pads, that probably was still a win. What's your thoughts so far? Do you think it's going to be much improved? Some people are saying, after 2 days, it's like, oh, they found their JPP from, to be that guy. What are your thoughts so far, especially after talking to Hassan today?
Yeah, I think they can be much improved up front. You think about, add Hassan Reddick. Again, obviously last year wasn't what he wanted, but if he's anything that he was from 20 to 23, he's a 50 sack guy over 4 years. Double digits with 4 different teams, which shows you can come into a new place, find immediate success, and just be a playmaker. It's not just sacks with him; it's forced fumbles. I remember I was at the Super Bowl covering the Eagles in 22 when they went. And that was Hassan's big thing, is that he talked about how, here he was like an MVP candidate in 22. I think he had 5 or 6 forced fumbles. And his whole thing was that it's not enough to get to the quarterback and get a sack. Like you have to go to the quarterback with the expectation of getting the ball away. Right. And again, like if you can have 5 forced fumbles in a season, that's a huge game record of a season for a pass rusher, and I think that's what he wants to get back to. It was funny. We talked to him today, and he was asked, like, what are your numericals? What are your personal goals for this season? And he's like, oh, I'm not about numeric goals, not about individual numbers. I've never thought about that. When I've had good seasons, it hasn't been thinking about numeric goals. And in the time it took him to answer the question, he was like, but yeah, maybe double digits, and kind of acknowledge that. Because when you're coming off a 2-sack season, you want to put a big number out there. So I think that helps him. The Bucs for so long had gone without any double-digit sacks at all. And like JPP kind of got that going again. Obviously, Shaq Barrett got that in a big way. So he's we think about, going into a season wondering who's going to lead the team in sacks. There's a couple years now, post JPP, where it's kind of been Vea or somebody with 7 sacks or 8 sacks. Right. And I think this is probably the best chance they have to just have a double-digit sack season. Maybe if Kancey were healthy for a full year, you'd say that's in play as well. But just their total sacks, that's a number that can move up. I think Reddick was saying today that their goal within the edges is to get 30 from that group. Because last year they had good sack numbers, but a lot were interior guys or linebackers blitzing. So just the pure edge sack number wasn't what you'd want. But no, I think, again, the idea that Kancey really hasn't started the year right yet, like his 2 years, he set himself back with injuries. So if you can start him healthy and keep him healthy, I just feel like when Kancey and Vea are out there, as much as the Bucs want to use them, it makes life easier for the edges. It certainly makes the linebackers have a lot more direct paths to the ball carrier to get in the backfield. It's kind of the catalyst for everything moving back into defense. So when you think about adding Reddick, you think about having a healthy Kancey, you think about Diaby, you think about even, honestly, to see what Braswell can do and develop in a second year. Those are all things that should give them optimism that this can be a better defensive front and then a better defense as a whole this fall.
Yeah, I definitely think so. I think the addition of Reddick simply, and we talked about this today, is like, who do you double? Like you can't chip Diaby all the time like you were trying to. You already couldn't double Vita Vea because you let Kalijah Kancey free. Now you had a guy like Reddick on there as well. And it becomes a very difficult situation. And that one picture we just showed there, another big man, if he can somehow slim down and make the roster, the picture of the front 5 there, Desmond Watson, if he can slim down, next one, right here, boom, there he is. If he can slim down, get himself good, push what, Greg? They've already stopped it before, but this front 5 right here looks like they could cause some problems for a lot of teams.
Yeah, it's funny. I mean, you see him there. It's like there's not many people that can make Vita Vea look small,
Right.
or make Yaya Diaby look small. He's huge. No, and it's like I don't know. I mean, it's one of those where it would take a lot for him to make the 53. You would have to not only cut weight but kind of show a real niche. I mean, Greg Gaines is probably the guy they bring in when Vea's not on the field in terms of a big and a nose. You don't really keep three on the 53, so I think he's still probably on a path for practice squad initially, but. I mean, their top 4 D linemen from last year are back, so you can pencil those 4 in Vea and Cansey and Hall and Gaines. But Elijah Roberts is probably the 5th as a draft pick.
CJ Brewer.
You can pretty much lock him in there. If they carried a 6 D lineman, that's going to be somebody who isn't in that conversation. Who is Mike Green or a CJ Brewer or a guy like Des Watson or Nash Walker or whatever his name is.
Eric Banks, Adam Costas. Yeah. It's funny because when you look at, everyone's clamoring because he's the Florida guy's local kid, right?
Yeah, sure.
But there is a situation where I think he can make the practice squad definitely, and then hey, maybe we're talking week 4, Eagles come to town, you're like, hey, let's just do it, if you feel like you can sacrifice, because I think that's the biggest thing they wanted to accomplish, right? Was to have that depth they didn't have last year. So when we're looking at the inactive list, we're looking at, oh wow, that guy's inactive. And it's because they have such good depth on this team. I think that was something that they really wanted to get to, and I think they've done a good job. And we'll see, with the front 4 with that, if they can get pressure home, because that'll open up everything else in the back end, and that's something that they've been missing. But the offense has been straight humming. Oh, one thing too, Greg, I just remembered. You mentioned Greg Gaines. We haven't asked about him. Greg hasn't been there all spring, so we gotta ask Todd tomorrow about.
We ask it. It's one of those where both kind of has his June injury answer where it's like, yeah, it's nothing too serious. We hope to have him back for camp. And that's all he's going to say. You could ask it, but it's kind of like if you have the non-answer in the chamber already, it's kind of like, all right, I'll just let it go.
We could write the quote and just, because it's going to be the same thing. He's nicked up all the time in camp. But the offensive line, Tristan Wirfs, are you worried? Because I don't think I'm too worried about it. I know some people are freaking out online, but I think he's going to be fine.
Yeah, I mean, to see him at first, brace on his knee, not doing anything, you wonder, like, did he have some work done or what? I mean, the fact that he's held out, Worf doesn't like being out at all. So that means there's something there. But to be honestly, when we did see him, he was working with Bobby Slater, the head trainer, on the kind of the field adjacent to practice, and he was doing everything he would do. I mean, he took off and was at full speed, and he was, going back in stance. He was doing all the things you would normally do. So I think he's fine. I think for the start of camp,
attention.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, he doesn't really need attention, but it's one of those where I just think June is a month where if there's anything vaguely dinged up, you just hold the guy out. Just err on the side of caution, especially like Worf. Worf's everything around him is the same. The coaching is the same. I think there are probably some subtle differences with a new offense, but nothing that he has to be on the field to get in June. So I think, if we're still talking about this when camp starts in July, it's probably another issue. But right now, he's got 6 weeks to kind of take it easy and lay low and be ready for camp in July here.
Yeah, I talked to him coming from the cut and color. He had this beautiful bangs in his hair. And I'm like, where you been? You good? He's like, yeah, I look out the gym, and if I see you guys out there, I just keep on doing my workout. He's not trying to come out anytime soon. But the rest of the offensive line has looked pretty good. Again, shorts and shells. The guys who impressed me, though, and I was on Jay Retro podcast today, and he asked me about how I felt about the depth on the offensive line. And I'll tell you what, Greg, some of these kids have really impressed me, the new kids. I know Ben Chukwuma, he's got a long way to develop, but still just the natural athleticism you can see. And Jake Majors, I think, has a real shot to earn a spot on this 53-man roster as a backup center. What have you seen from the offensive line, particularly some of these young guys trying to make the team?
Yeah, I think there's real intrigue there, and that the starters are the same, but the depth is going to change out. Hainsey's gone, School's gone. So, I mean, I think Charlie Heck is probably the guy that directly replaces Justin School. He'll be the swing tackle, and I think you can probably pencil in Elijah Klein as the 7th O-lineman, as a guy that they liked and is back. He has a year on everybody. But then 8, 9, if there's 10, are going to be new. So Ben Chukwuma is a really cool story. I got to write him after the draft. Yes. I mean, literally had not played a game of football this time 2 years ago, which is just crazy. Just came into it late and was a walk on, and then literally just showed up for a tryout. And
First guy Gedeke called out today too, when was asked.
Right. And then I like sometimes asking these guys just open-ended questions. Hey, who of the new guys has impressed you? Just because usually there's somebody that jumps to mind. And he mentioned, I think he called him Chook.
You heard him screaming it down towards the he made a block or something. They were saying Chook. I was like, what? And then I kind of put it together.
Yeah. So again, just brand new. Like you think about it as raw and undrafted guy. I think he's played 15 career games, maybe something like that. So
right.
It's just cool to have that guy and to know that, like, if he shows too much in preseason, you're going to have to keep him or you'll lose him off the practice squad when you go through waivers. But no, Chukwuma has shown a lot. Jake Majors, it seems like, has taken all the second team center reps. So you'd put him ahead of a Raekwon O'Neal or anybody else. They didn't really have a true backup center going into the draft, if you will. So I think they would tell you that if something happened in a pinch, Ben Bredesen can slide over. He's played center in the NFL, and that would be your in-game fix. But in terms of developing a center, having somebody that can be your developmental guy, Jake's probably that guy. He's a little bit shorter than the other guy, Ben Scott, who's in there, was a college center. Ben's kind of been a guard for them. But no, it's intriguing, and I think it would be – I would be surprised if there's not an undrafted rookie offensive lineman on the 53 from what we've seen now.
Yeah, definitely. Whether that's Jake Majors or Ben, I think Ben Scott or Ben Chukwuma, one of those guys I think cracks it. I lean towards Jake Majors right now, but again, it's all going to shake out with, what does Suo-Peta look like and what are these other guys? Because, and again, do they feel like this year they're on their way to contend? Is this the year that where maybe last year they'd take a risk on a Tyreek Funderburk? Is this the year that they're going to do that? Or are they going to stick with a guy like Suo-Peta with game and say, we'll try to get him on the practice squad, but we're going with a mostly experience laden depth on our team over the belt. And you got to balance both always, but we'll see what happens, how they construct that roster. It's going to be interesting. The wide receiver position has been fun to watch. No Mike in team drills, obviously no Chris, but man, Egbuka's been putting on a show, and McMillan bounced back pretty well after a rough day yesterday. I think it's a matter of time. Pads probably. First, second week in pads before Egbuka probably takes over Jaylen McMillan. When they strictly go like 3 wide receiver sets, if you had to name a starter there out of that, but what are your thoughts? He just looks so clean and crisp in everything he does, Greg.
Yeah, I mean, everything you've heard about him since the draft has just reinforced how excited they were, giddy that he would be there, not caring about positional needs or the chance to trade down. It was like, no, if he's there, they want him. That's really cool to have that when you have 2 really, really established leader veteran. You don't need help at receiver. That was a position where
best rookie wide receiver over the last half of the season too.
Right. Yeah. I mean, like McMillan led the NFL in touchdowns in the last 7 weeks of the season. So they had even upside to go with those 2.
Right.
But again, it's one of those where you can't have enough. I think it takes some of the pressure off Godwin having to be back and push him to be a week 1 guy. And you have 3 really good ones. And then again, like Bowles today, we're asking about Tez Johnson, and he's like, he could play a vital role in this offense. And that's your 7th rounder, So I just think that's the one position on this team right now where they're going to have to cut a guy that's going to show. I get thunder here. Wow. They're going to cut a guy that's going to land on another 53 that'll get claimed. If you're cutting Rakim Jarrett, if you're cutting Cam Johnson's the guy we barely saw last year. And then you watch him today and he has some really good speed, but he's essentially
touchdown to close out practice yesterday.
Yeah, right. Had a nice catch in red zone. That's right. So I just feel like there's about, because so many guys played last year during these injuries, there's 10 names of guys that people know the number of and watched them play last year, and you can't keep 10 of them. So out of Ryan Miller and Rakim Jarrett and, I think if Tez makes it, that means somebody else that you thought was back from last year probably doesn't. So whether it's Trey Palmer, we didn't even mention Trey Palmer, but Trey Palmer, again, you go back 2 years ago, is like a 40-catch rookie. So I do think it's something where they could probably, I don't know if it's a draft pick, but could probably trade somebody that they know they're going to cut as one of those spare parts trade where it's just my 54th guy for your 54th guy, and maybe you can upgrade your depth somewhere else on defense, add a safety they like or an inside linebacker they like or something like that.
Right.
But they're overstacked. They're overloaded at receiver, and you do that, to guard against injuries and to make sure it's a position that Baker just has overloaded talent to work with.
Dennis Houston was one of the big stars of the show today. We had a couple good deep catches. I think just kind of going through tight end, it's been good to see Devin Culp. I feel like, I mean, I'm not going to say caveat, shorts and shoulders, whatever. But like he's made some really good catches. Yesterday, he had that really nice extension grab from Trask, who just lasered it in the only spot he could get it. Today, he had another nice catch running up the seam as well. Do you think he has an opportunity to kind of unseat Payne Durham as that tight end too? I saw our friend Evan Winter kind of said that he could be everything the Bucs wanted to get out of OJ Howard. Kind of high praise there.
Only for that, yeah.
What do you think about Devin Culp, seeing him the last couple of weeks?
Yeah, just continues to develop. I mean, he's a guy that barely played, was inactive really the first 3 months of the season, then came on, made some catches late. It's like, tight end and depth of tight end really wasn't a part of Liam Cohen's offense. Even when Auman went down, it was kind of a one tight end. I mean, I think they had 11 catches maybe from their depth of tight end all season. So it was Cade and all Cade. So I think the more they can do Cade doesn't have to be a guy that plays 98% of your offensive snaps. I think it'll help him and help them to be able to mix guys in there. There was a fair amount of double tight end today. We're not going to talk too much about what we saw, but I was kind of surprised how much there was still a lot of double tight end looks today. And Culp is a great part of that because Culp's basically a big receiver. I think he moves really well for a tight end, but when you think about mismatches, him on a linebacker is a nice matchup that they're going to take. So I do think, I'll be curious to see if they carry 4 tight ends again. It could be that, we're looking at special teams value. And when you're deciding between him and Kokeith, how that shakes out. Because they're going to, if you have 4, that means maybe you're not carrying a third quarterback, or maybe you're not carrying a 10th offensive lineman, or only 6 receivers. You have to you can only have depth everywhere, or some places out, and you can't have it anywhere. So I will be curious to see how that shakes out. Culp definitely has the best upward trajectory. I think Coe is exactly who they wanted him to be as a special teams guy, as a short yardage blocking type guy.
Right.
Payne obviously had a chance to step up and made some nice catches last year, but I think there's a big drop off right now between Auman and the depth. So anything they can do to bridge that gap. Obviously Auman's a free agent a year from now. I think they want him back. I think they'll have him back on an extension, but you don't, when you're going into the leverage of a contract year, you don't want to make him your only tight end that you trust on the field.
Right. To me, that's the one position, that and safety. That's the one position on offense and on safety. I feel like I don't include quarterback because every team, but I mean, those are the one position that you really can't get injured because your next guy up is not the same, anywhere near the same caliber as a guy going down. And I think you can make do at other positions. I don't think you can make do at tight end if Cade is out for 6-8 games, or if Antoine's going to miss another 6 to 8 games. So those are the 2 positions, and maybe inside linebacker. Although I think they like what they've seen from Deion Jones so far.
Yeah. I mean, and Anthony Walker would probably be the second, and you have 3 there that you like. And I think Anthony Walker can be a Britt level, maybe a little bit better than Britt.
Better.
After coverage. Those 3, Deion Jones is the guy that was out of the league most of the year. I think they're happy with what he's done, but he's probably not a guy who should be on the field very much on a good defense.
Right. And people wanted them to sign Jermaine Pratt to be their 4th line. It's just not going to happen. He goes and Spytek scoops him up, which is a logical landing spot for him. I feel like so now he's got the Pratt guy all the Bucs fans wanted, and he also got Devin White. So we'll see how that.
Yeah, I worry if he kind of bumped Devin White down a peg there.
Right.
With the money he got in the role. He's coming off like 143 tackle season. So probably playing a more prominent role than Devin, I think.
Right, exactly. So it's going to be interesting. Training camp's right away. We got 1 practice. It's really kind of just a walkthrough, and we get a couple interviews. We'll talk to, I think we're talking to Bucky tomorrow.
Yep.
So we'll get his thoughts on what's been going on throughout the offseason on Grizzard's offense, which, like you said, has looked pretty good. Obviously, Baker, again, likes to take those risks and take those chances during practice. So it's not a true picture. Plus, there's no pads, but plenty of reason to be optimistic. I know this is the time for optimism, but I feel like, Greg, this is, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, you covered this team through the dark ages, so you know more, but I feel like this is a year to, if you're optimistic, you have a really good reason to be optimistic, because this team is one that could put a lot of people on notice.
Well, and again, I mean, the team is kind of the preemptive favorite now in the NFC South, and that hasn't really been the case maybe since 21, 22. So, I mean, I think that is a role that in the past they kind of almost would rather be the underdog and would rather get, slighted and overlooked and chip on their shoulders. Yeah, I think this is a team that kind of has the success where they like the idea of being the team to beat, and they'll take that responsibility of having targets on them to where they can talk about, yes, the division title is the first goal, but they want more than that. They want to have a sustained, deeper playoff run. And I think they have the talent to do that. It's just a matter of staying healthy in a way that they really didn't last year.
Absolutely. I think that's the biggest thing. Health is going to be huge for them. I think they've built enough depth. I think we'll see the trend because of the coaching is so good of the rookies making impacts, even if it's, not consistent throughout the year, but they'll make some impact plays for them. And it's we got one more day and then about a month and a half off. And then we're headed right back into training camp, and football's right around the corner. Greg, thank you so much for popping on here. What are you up to? What are you writing now? What do you got going on? Where can people find you?
Another day, it's kind of summer doldrums, so there's not that much going on right now. A couple of team previews we just put up, like game-by-game predictions on Packers and Vikings and Steelers and stuff like that. But no, it's once you get past this week, it's what do you do to find content? How do you keep the beast, every day you're adding something new. But no, it's everything I write to foxsports.com. You guys can find me there. I'm at Twitter at my name, Greg Auman, AUMAN. Thanks for having me, man.
Yeah, I appreciate it so much. Thank you. Again, ladies and gentlemen, Greg Auman, one of the best out there. Appreciate you. So, yeah, Greg Auman, great stuff from him. Thank you guys for all tuning in. I do want to keep you in tune. As Greg just said, we're about to get into the doldrums, people. It's about to be slow. It's about to be, aggregating time for a lot of writers about here, but not for me. I'll do some aggregating here and there. I'll do some quote pieces. I'll definitely have some more guests. We'll get some players on now that they're on their break. Don't have to worry about football for a little bit. So we'll get some of these guys on here the next couple of weeks, which will be fun. And I also, over at Bucs Game Day, I'm going to be starting an NFC South preview and pretty much just kind of where the Bucs rank or where the NFC ranks in each position category. So quarterback, obviously running back all the way through. And it's not just going to be based on the number one guy, but it's going to be based on the position group itself. So whereas, hey, Bucky Irving, is he the best running back or is that Bijan Robinson in the NFC South? But whoever it is, maybe just because they've got the best doesn't mean they have the best total room. And we'll go through that on both sides of the ball. And then my positional previews will be breaking down each position for the Bucs, what the battles are going to look like, training camp battles, all that fun stuff. So we'll be keeping it going over at Bucs Game Day. We'll certainly be keeping it here at Pirate Parlay. Again, I appreciate everyone for tuning in. Like, subscribe, turn on notifications. Everyone listening on podcast form, appreciate you guys. If you guys looking for any advertising opportunities, feel free to reach out. DMs are always open on X at JCLNFL. And yeah, we're just going to get started here into the fun part of the season where nothing's going on. And we'll get some players on here and have a lot of fun. So appreciate everyone for tuning in. And as always, it's going to do it for me here. Again, Pirate Parlay Podcast on the Sick Podcast Network. I'm JC Allen. We're out of here. Peace out.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast Pirate Parlay on YouTube, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.